Have you ever felt abandoned, betrayed by those you love, or forgotten in your darkest moments? This is the story of Joseph, a boy who went from being rejected by his own family to becoming the second most powerful man in Egypt. And trust me, this is a story you'll never forget. So, sit tight as we dive into this incredible tale of faith and resilience. Joseph was born into a family of 12 brothers, a household filled with rivalry and jealousy. His father, Jacob, loved him deeply, perhaps a little too prominently for the liking of his other sons. Jacob gifted Joseph a beautiful coat of many colors, a symbol that set him apart. And as if the favoritism wasn't already enough, Joseph began having dreams that hinted at a divine calling. Specifically, he dreamed that his brothers' sheaves of wheat bowed to his, and even the sun, moon, and stars made homage. These dreams? Oh, they didn't go over well. The brothers saw Joseph as an arrogant boy, a dreamful nuisance that needed to be dealt with. One fateful day, Joseph's brothers were tending to their sheep far away. Jacob sent Joseph on an errand to check on them. As his silhouette emerged in the distance, the brothers plotted against him. "Here comes the dreamer. Let's kill him and see what becomes of his dreams," one of them said. Fortunately, Reuben, the eldest, convinced the others not to kill Joseph but to throw him into a pit instead. Reuben planned to rescue him later, but before he could act, the brothers saw a caravan of Ishmaelite traders passing by. Greed clicked in their minds, and they sold Joseph into slavery for 20 pieces of silver. Those coins jingled in their pockets while their father, Jacob, mourned for what he believed to be the death of his beloved son. So there was Joseph, a favored son now reduced to a slave in a foreign land. Joseph was bought by Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh. But even in those circumstances, Joseph's faith in God did not waver. He worked diligently and gained favor in Potiphar's household, eventually being put in charge of everything Potiphar owned. But the story doesn't stop there. A storm was brewing. Potiphar's wife noticed Joseph, who was described as handsome and well-built. She tried to seduce him, but Joseph refused, saying, "How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" That refusal would cost him dearly. In her anger and humiliation, Potiphar's wife accused Joseph of attacking her. With no trial and no evidence, Joseph was thrown into prison. Imagine being Joseph. You were already betrayed by your own family, sold into slavery, and now even your righteous acts land you in a dark, cold prison. Yet Joseph didn't lose hope. He found favor even in prison, gaining the trust of the warden who had Joseph manage the prisoners. Among those imprisoned were the Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker, both of whom had troubling dreams. Joseph might have been in prison, but his gift of interpreting dreams wasn't chained. He interpreted their dreams accurately. The cupbearer would be restored while the baker would be executed. 2 years passed, and Joseph remained in prison, forgotten by the cupbearer who had promised to mention him to Pharaoh. But God had not forgotten Joseph. Pharaoh himself began having baffling dreams. 7 fat cows followed by 7 skinny ones, and 7 healthy ears of grain devoured by 7 thin ones. No one in his court could decipher their meaning. Then finally the cupbearer remembered Joseph. Joseph was summoned before Pharaoh. Calm and confident, he told Pharaoh, "I cannot interpret your dreams, but God can." He explained that Egypt would experience 7 prosperous years followed by 7 years of severe famine. This wasn't just about interpreting dreams, it was God's plan for preserving a nation. Pharaoh was so impressed by Joseph that he appointed him to oversee the preparation for the famine, effectively making him the second most powerful man in Egypt. Joseph stored grain during the fruitful years so that when the famine hit, not only Egypt but surrounding nations came to survive through Joseph's foresight. And then came the defining moment. The famine reached Canaan, and Jacob sent his sons, Joseph's brothers, to Egypt to buy grain. Standing in front of Joseph, they didn't recognize him. But Joseph? Oh, he knew exactly who they were. He had every right to take revenge, to throw them into despair the way they'd done to him. Yet Joseph's heart had been tempered by years of suffering and faith. After testing their characters through a series of interactions, Joseph finally revealed himself. Watching his brothers dumbfounded and speechless, Joseph said words that still resonate today. "What you intended for evil, God intended for good, to accomplish the saving of many lives." Joseph's family was reunited, and his brothers knelt before him, fulfilling those childhood dreams. But this wasn't about power or revenge. It was about reconciliation and God's sovereign plan to use every trial for a purpose far greater than we can imagine. So, what does Joseph's story tell us? It tells us that faith amidst trials does not go unnoticed. It tells us that forgiveness can heal even the deepest wounds. And most importantly, it reminds us that no matter how dark the pit may seem, God can lead us to the palace if we trust His plan. You see, when others intend harm, God can transform it into something beautiful. And that, my friends, is the story of Joseph, from pit to palace.